All right, welcome to our new Unity tutorials. This is going to be the first video in the series about how to work with images, and this might take a little bit to come up here. So I'm just going to create a new project, and then I will explain what's going on as this thing loads up. So I'm going to click New Project. We're going to call this Project 1, and it'll be 2D, and here we go. So just like all of the tutorials that I usually do, we're going to start from scratch and go through the basics of Unity. And right now we are doing everything in 2D. We'll do some more in 3D. There's more videos on my channel if you want to check those out as well. But for the most part, we are going to be doing everything in 2D. We're going to be using these glitch assets. So if you look up glitch the game, um, you'll be able to find all of these wonderful PNGs and sprite sheets and basically all of the graphics that we're going to be using for all of these series. I get them all from Glitch the Game. So if you're new to Unity, that's great because this is going to be a tutorial of walking through it for the first time. So yeah, have some PNGs for this example. They don't need to be anything fancy. Just a couple images are going to be all that you need. And then let's take a look at Unity. So this is our main screen here. We have different panels, and in each of these panels, they do different things. And we'll be using all of these as we start to build some different scenes and projects. And today we're just going to be doing images. So how do we bring in images into our scene, and how do we use them? How do we manipulate them? And we'll learn a little bit more about what are all these different sections of Unity. All right, so what happens down here, I'll just explain them and then we'll go through and work at it. So on your project tab down here, this is where we're going to bring in all of our images that we want to use. As we place them into our scenes, they'll show up over here. So we can have a whole bunch of images, but maybe we're not going to be using them all at once. These are going to be the ones that are actually active and in use. They're going to be over here where it says sample scene. Right inside the center here, this is where we're going to build our scene. You can see the white rectangle is basically our camera. So if you start placing objects in this center scene, if they're outside of this rectangle, you may not be able to see them. This game tab, so you can click on these tabs. Game tab is going to show you what it looks like if you were to actually run your game, which you can do by hitting the play button. Click it here, we won't see anything, but this would show what our game is. Right now it's nothing, it's just this ugly blue background. And then the asset store, this is a place where you can go buy all sorts of stuff, and you can even buy some stuff for free. We'll save that for later. We're going to work mainly in scene and game tab for now. And then over here is your inspector, and this tells you properties of one of your items. So I'm going to click back to my scene tab here. If I click on main camera, we already have a camera in our scene that's actually showing us what to look at. And if you look at over here, it's going to give us all the properties of our main camera. And one of the properties that it's giving us that drives me crazy is this ugly blue color right here. If we looked at our game tab, it's all this ugly blue. And it drives me nuts seeing this blue color. So we can change that. So we have our main camera selected over here on the left, and we come over here in the properties. If we click, all I did was single click right here into this blue color, and now we can use these sliders to change the color of the background. I'll just make it pretty much white. And then there we go. So now our camera preview down here is showing us this white color. In our game tab, it's now this white color. And so by not doing a whole lot of work, we've sort of changed the whole look of our game, of our environment too. Couple of things. You can click, I'm right on the scene tab right now, and I can click and I can drag my scene tab down here. So you can customize this whole interface, which is great if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you could mess things up very quickly because all of a sudden your scene tab might disappear and you don't know what's going on. And it's time to panic, but don't panic because this is your get out of free or jail free card right here. If you go to Window, Layouts, and then go to Default. And I'm showing you that in the very first video because it will help you out quite a bit. Window, Layouts, Default. Because at some point you're accidentally going to do something, and I don't think there's an undo button for doing something strange like this. But if you go to Window, Layouts, Default, then everything will get back to normal. So remember that, keep that in mind. If you get lost or something is really bad, just go reset your window layouts to default. When that happens, here's our sample scene over here. I'm going to click this little triangle here. That'll expand it and show us all of the stuff that we've got here. All right, so yes, remember that, reset your window layouts. Okay, so let's bring in some images. Like I said earlier, I went and downloaded this Glitch, the game assets. You can find those online. But for what we're doing today, just any kind of PNG is going to work good enough. I'm just going to grab a couple of them. Here, how about this chair? That looks nice. So in order to import them into your Unity project, you just click from your Explorer, and if you're on a Mac, you just click from the Finder, same thing. Drag it down here into your Assets folder, and this will bring it into Unity. So notice that we didn't see it here in the middle of the screen. It just showed up down here under Assets. That means this is a image that we can use. And if we want to use it, we can just drag it right into our Unity scene. And there it is. And we can do all sorts of things with it. I want to draw your attention up here to this toolbar up here. These are different ways to manipulate objects. So if you click on the hand, you're going to be panning your view of the entire universe of your project. So I'm just right-clicking and dragging around. That's with me with this hand up here. If you use the crosshair, you can move objects around and keep them on a certain axis. And I use this all the time. In 2D, maybe it's not so important, but in working in 3D, having these handles on it works really good. So I've got the crosshair selected up here at the top. Now if I hover my mouse over these arrows, you can see they kind of change color, and now I can click and drag, and it will only go up and down. And then if I click on this one, it will only go left and right. And that really helps as far as positioning goes. So let's take a look at this thing right here. We've got this chair, grandma chair selected over here, and we have the properties in the inspector way over on the right. I think sometimes by default there's some analytics or some other tabs over here on the right, but inspector is always there, so click on the inspector tab. If you have multiple stuff over here, it's okay, just click on inspector. So with this selected, we've got some more details about it. One of them that's important is this position, X, Y, and Z. So X is horizontal, and so this says -5. If I move my chair over here to the middle, now X has turned to 0. And so this is our positioning of our X. And as I move this thing across the screen, you'll see our X value getting higher the more to the right it is, with 0 being in the middle. And the same thing for our Y values. If I drag this thing up and down, you'll see the Y values over here going up and down too, with 0 right in the middle. So 0, 0 is sort of the center of our whole world. The Z value is front to back, and in 2D we do have that concept, and this does make a whole lot of difference if you start messing with it. But I think for right now we're just going to leave those 0. Let's just not touch the Z value. But if you look at our main camera, that one does have a Z value of -10 because it's got to be before, it's got to be in front of those objects. If they were at the same plane, you wouldn't see them. So it's sort of the depth. So for right now, we'll just know that the camera is back, and these ones are just leave them at 0 for right now. And that's our positioning and moving them around, checking out our properties. We've got rotation. So I'm back here on the rotate tool, and we can move and rotate in different axes. And if you look over here, that Z-axis is changing as we rotate this way. I'll put it back to 0. Here we have our scale tool, and this will scale our object up. We do have scale over here on the right. And if I just grab this white box right in the middle, I just click on it and drag, it's going to uniformly scale in all directions. And I can go back into the box. I can type in, oops, say 1 is what the default was. And if I wanted to double the height, I could type in this box, 2, or I'm sorry, the width. And if I also wanted to double the height, there you go. But I can grab one direction like this and just drag it out and see what happens as I stretch it. Or if I stretch it this way. And then this thing down here, the rect tool, up here again, rect tool, that allows me to click and drag my object around in the scene, but then I can also do some scaling by grabbing things in the corners. So those are all very useful tools. The other thing that you can do is with the mouse wheel, you can scroll in and out, and that will zoom in and zoom out on your canvas. So remember, this rectangle is what your camera is going to see. So when I zoom all the way out, I can put stuff wherever I want, but the only stuff that's going to be visible is the stuff that's within this camera box. And we'll work on, you can move the camera around, and we'll work on that a little bit later. If I middle mouse click, so I'm clicking down on the mouse wheel and dragging, I can pan around. It's the same thing as using the hand. So if I go back here and I click down with the mouse wheel, I can pan around. So either way, click down with the mouse wheel or click here, it's just a little bit shorter. Shortcut to click with the mouse wheel. You can also right click and drag it around like that. So a couple shortcuts there. Okay, so we have our wonderful chair, and if we look at our game, there it is. Remember, we changed the properties of the background color of our camera. We added a chair. Let's add one more picture. Let's add a background. Something to go in the background. I'm just going to grab this set of bushes here. I'm going to put them here, and I'm going to scale these things quite a bit because I want them to be in the background. And all I'm trying to do is get a pattern for our background. Now if I look at my game tab, it looks like this. Now where did our chair go? Here's our chair. So this is something that you really got to pay a really close attention to, because sometimes this kind of works. Like I want the chair to be in front of these leaves, and it's not, or these bushes. If it was, it might just be accidentally working. So you got to really think about what we're going to do here. So I want this chair to be in front. If I come over here and take a look at the properties, here is the order and layer, and this is just a number. And I'm going to show you another trick while I'm at this number. I can type in here whatever I want. So I could type in 10, and then it shows up in front right here. I'll put it back to 0. The other thing I can do is if I hover my mouse over the word order and layer, you can see there's 2 little arrows on either side of the pointer. And if I click, I left click and drag, I'm actually changing the values by dragging to the right, it's going way up, or going to the left, it's going way down. And those parameters work, that way of manipulating these things work with any of these parameters up here. So now I've brought this thing out to an order layer of 11, which means it's in front of this bush. And it will always be in front of this bush. If they're both 0, and this one is a 0, and the chair is a 0, which one gets drawn first, since they're the same value? The answer is you don't know, because it's seems to be random. Sometimes it will look right, sometimes it will look wrong, and so always think about in the back of your head how you want to order these things. Our background is usually a 0, and stuff in the forefront is a little bit higher, so I'm just going to click that thing up to like maybe a 10. And the shortcut for if we wanted to move right and left, we can always move our mouse right on top of the X. I'm over here, the position. If I put my mouse over the X and then I left click, I can just move it just in the X direction like that. So that's another shortcut of things. And now if I hit the play button, we will actually play our little game. And not a whole lot's going on, but we did position all of our graphics, and we made sure about our order and layer business, so we're sure that everything is going to show up in the right order. And I think that's pretty much what I want to do for this first video. Just drag in these images, make sure you can scale, rotate, make sure that you understand the ordering and layers, and then the rest was, understanding the entire layout of how Unity works, where we have our assets down here where we bring in our images, we import them, and then over here in the scene we're actually using them, and then over here on the right, the inspector, these are the properties of these items. So I think that'll do it. We'll stop this video now and we'll start another one later.